if you have risk or issues that pop up when they pop up at the in the project schedule, if you have the possible resolutions, the implemented resolution, and the cost and the schedule impact, you can pretty much, and if you have it for a good number of projects for 500, 600, um, you can pretty much come up with an AI that can tell you what to expect at what period of time, what are the possible resolution based on your project parameters. This seems to be the most possible, most probable resolution. And guess who has that data? I do.
I
So
know.
I do.
I know. You have so
I,
much. Yeah.
I do plan on doing something like that. So just need to uh, take out time, I guess.
Let me know when you're. Let me know when you're ready, Alma.
So really quick, let me just reset the room here. My name is Brittanie Campbell-Turner. I'm the CEO and founder of Constructor. We are in the Prop Tech Club Lean Construction Roundtable, where we meet Thursdays every single week, talking about different aspects of lean and how to apply it. We talk about practical ways to do this, talk about specific examples, and are excited about improving the overall built environment. Doesn't have to be technology itself, but Raleigh, we're excited about this technology that could pull lessons learned from project to project and bring it up at the right time. But we are streaming live. So if you are out there, please feel free to let us know what your thoughts are in the chat. About this conversation. The topic for today is lessons learned. It is how do we take advantage of the learnings that we are getting from our projects. How do we reduce them in the future? How do we take those learnings forward? How do we focus on the process and not the people? So that's what we're talking about today. Welcome Sana, welcome Dee, welcome Maiwand. Welcome, Dr. Candy. And then Hal, I know you've popped up on stage after us kind of beckoning you. So we appreciate you hopping up here. But Hal, because you've come up, would you please just give a quick introduction to yourself and share your thoughts about this lessons learned topic?
Sure. Thanks, Brittanie. It's great hearing your voice again. Yeah, so I've been around this community, the lean construction, lean design and construction community since 1990 something, pre the beginning of LCI, maybe 1995. The community goes back to 1992 when the IGLC, International Group for Lean Construction, was formed. I love the topic, but I want to propose another way of thinking about this. We don't have to learn the lesson. We can anticipate the lesson we can avoid. And the idea, some people say instead of the lessons learned, they say post-mortem. There's this other term, it's called a pre-mortem. And the thinking there is that as you're going into a phase of work or as you're considering design options, ask yourselves, what would we have to do to really mess this thing up? Like, what would we be doing that this would come out badly? And as Amorali was saying, it's like, most people, they've got enough experience that they could say, if electrical started to get out in front of mechanical in terms of their design, that would result in a whole bunch of RFIs. And so, then what are we going to do so we keep electrical coordinated with mechanical? This idea of a pre-mortem is not well practiced in our industry. It's pretty well practiced in software development and mostly large systems kind of software development as opposed to the kind of SaaS kind of applications like ERP systems and those kinds of things, really big systems. There's good practices of both pre-mortems, and then going back to the lessons learned side, the broader name for lessons learned is called retrospectives. And there's multiple patterns for doing retrospectives that are, it's like as common as at the end of every month, the team sits down and says, all right, like, let's systematically review how we did for this month. So I'll leave it there.
I love that, Hal. Really, really great stuff, and pulling from different industries who are looking at how to take advantage of, again, back to the respect for people, and trying to eliminate the waste of unutilized talent. Take advantage of the skill that people have to preemptively anticipate what's the worst that could happen. How do we mitigate that? I love that. I think that sometimes it's not practiced because we're lots of time we're kind of focused on, like, what is the next step to just get this next piece done that we originally planned. But I mean, I love the idea of thinking, well, what's the worst that could happen here, that could really just mess us up. It's I don't know, it's a novel thing. And I wonder why it's not done more often, in other industries. It's an interesting, I'm thinking about people who are athletes, like they only focus on the from a visioning perspective what they're gonna do, and only envision doing it perfectly. But because we have so many components and processes and collaboration things that we need to focus on, having those things kind of opened up and shared, it allows for that process flow to actually really um, be improved just by having that dialogue. So really, really cool stuff.
Oh, sorry, Sana and Hal. Go.
Oh, I just want to say I love the topic as well. So I'm Sana. I'm director of product development and marketing at manufacturing. Um, uh, we manufacture electronic components. So the whole lessons learned, we do that a lot when we do product development. And it's always to lay out that path and to be proactive. So just what Hay says, well, look ahead of what can go wrong or what did we do and where can we go. And we do step up after we have delivered a product. We do step up and saying, okay, what did we? It's also the deltas you can take in. What went well? What can actually change next time? And look at the lessons learned. And many times, I think it's down to communication, and ask the questions. You need to have a team that will raise their hand and say, hey, are we on the right path? Should we do it this way? Or I don't know, or should we involve somebody? It's so important, and it's okay also to ask the question, even though you are on the right path and doing it, going in the right direction. But you need to build that trust, and it's so important to have lessons learned. It's so important. So that was my take.
Sana, I'd love to hear, because you guys do it regularly. I'd love to hear how you go about doing that. Do you wait till the product is completely developed? Do you go? I mean, it sounds like you take it steps in between. Are there specific portions of the process that you do it? Is it a monthly cadence? Like, can you just break that down for us on how you
Yeah.
guys do it?
So two different ways. We do it when we complete a product, and that can take that can take from 4 months to a year, with product development for us. So we do it after, and then we um, a lot of post-its. What's happening, how can we improve, and it's also in a moment of you celebrate as well that we did it right. And again, I don't think there's any project that's always is the best route. You always learn because either the team has evolved, the technology has evolved, or the software you use, or the pandemic hits you, so you need to pivot. There's always something you can improve, um, and that's a journey, and it's a transformations for the team as well. On a weekly basis, when I have my team meetings, I always look around and saying, what did lessons learned? What did we learn this week? Because it's great and you could also say, what mistakes did you make, right? It's also, how do you word it? People don't like to say, this is my mistake. but if you say, what did you learn, and then share that, it builds up that it's not just on a huge project where you have a lot of cross-functional um, task going on. It's just not one place that it happens. It happens every day. It happens every moment. Even look at yourself. If you improve something at home, or you learn all over. So that's why I bring it a little bit more down to earth, that we talk about it every week. And then when we complete a project, we go through and saying, what did we learn? And it's a great way. It's a great way to get the team together as well.
Thank you for breaking that down for us, Sana. I like the weekly cadence of it. We have a huddle that we do on a weekly basis as a team as well, and one of the categories that we cover is wins. What do we call it? We call it wins, recognitions, and failures. And oftentimes, to your point about the mistakes, lots of people don't want to call them mistakes. But I think by having it kind of lumped into one, it gives people an opportunity to say, okay, well, this was my win, and this is what I learned as a result. This was the challenge that we encountered. There were a lot of this, that, and the other. And if we would have done it this other way, I think this is really what I gained out of it. Moving forward, we probably should change up the way we're doing it. So I think that's so valuable to have that kind of conversation shared, particularly because, again, it goes back to the usability and everybody understanding of how can you apply this the next time you're encountering a similar situation. Kalia, welcome to the room. We're happy to have you. I see you're in transportation and construction project and portfolio manager. So if you are interested in anything in particular in this conversation, we do have individuals who can answer questions in this. Or if you have something to contribute, the topic today is lessons learned. I like the way Hal described it, retrospectives, or what is it? Looking at it from the beginning instead of looking backwards.
Premortem.
Premortem, yes, instead of postmortem. So that's the topic for today. We're talking about different ways to go about doing it, and the value of it.
I was thinking from a software perspective, it's what could we do to really F this up? Or what could we do that could really slow us down if we do these activities first? Brittanie, sometimes I think I've said this to you, like just in regular conversations. It is around kind of like just leaving the house or being able to not perform a certain set activity, and so I would remember certain items or certain things that I need to actually execute on, and that I'll say I'd be upset if I didn't do later today. I'd really be upset if I didn't do X or I didn't accomplish X. So I'm preparing for those things that I could potentially miss or not say that I was really successful for my day if I didn't do these important tasks. So that's what I kind of got when he was talking about from a pre-mortem perspective. You just kind of think of it longer term on the project and think, hey, if I do things in this order versus this other order, this will really cause some complications later down the line.
Yeah, that's a good call out, Marcus. Whenever we go on a trip, even if it's just for a couple days, we're always asking that question: what would really suck if we forgot this at home? Or is if we did forget it, what could we do? Like, where could we get it, and like how much would it push us back? Like, so we're always asking those questions when we go on a trip, and we ask that after we've written our list and packed the car and ready to leave the house. And sometimes it adds maybe five more things to the car, or to the suitcase or whatever it is. But oftentimes we feel much more comforted in the fact that we asked that question. And but I think to your point, just general daily life, um and I think too, you bring up kind of general everyday. It's good to not get hung up in the pre-mortem. You know, Riley, I know he just left here quick. But he talks a lot about an issue log. And I like to call it, risk and opportunity log. Um, and I think we probably do it in slightly different ways, but the idea is to have those things in front of us, really clearly identified, before you kind of run into it. It's kind of that pre-mortem once again, saying we anticipate this could be a problem. Now, who's going to own this? And how are you going to go about doing that? Who do you need help from? By when does this need to be mitigated? How do we take care of that? Like, having that in front in your purview as a project team can really, really be helpful, and it can take away some of that blame culture, and allow for individuals to really take action on actually asking that question initially, like what could go wrong, and then um, think about how can you like make actionable steps and create a plan to take care of it, as much as you possibly can, to reduce the major risk, um, down to something that's a little bit more manageable.
I have a comment. So to improve, right? It's also about the best practice. So where I work, we have a CRM system that sales, marketing, customer service, engineering, we all use it, and we had a really hard time to get used to it and work on it. So instead of calling it lessons learned every week, I call it the little mini academy. So we meet 20 minutes every week where we tell what we learned about the software. Or we can also ask them saying, hey, I don't know how to do this. Anybody knows how to do it. And then we either figure it out because somebody knows about it, or we say, okay, we'll catch up next week and find out. So it's a hidden lessons learned meeting that I put out there, but it's a really great way for our team or for our company that we just meet 20 minutes, because everybody can meet 20 minutes, um, and it's a great way that we built some team on how to use a cross-functional software, and we laugh and we have fun, and it's a good way of building up some teamwork as well. So just an idea to put up there.
I love that, Sana.
I believe another important thing is to um, make the team building this culture that the team members do not ashamed to acknowledge that they have done something wrong or less correctly. I believe we need to understand that in order to um, improve, we need to know that we need to believe that there's always a better way to do stuff. And I'm struggling with my English, so I'm sorry for my English. Hope you're catching my point here. But uh, making people, team members, understand that it's not, they don't need to be ashamed of if they have done some mistakes, and be encourage them to talk about them openly, and ask another colleagues how would we do it better, and know that this will help my project and team members to learn about my mistakes, and I'm being really brave about it. This is a really important culture, I believe, that we need to build within our projects.
For the record, we understood you very well, Zore, and I 100% agree with that. Sometimes it's about taking the first step and being, an example to others, in creating that culture and saying, I messed up, and this is what I learned, and it's okay for us to own it, own the mess up, but as long as it's from a perspective of I'm going to be able to do something as a result of me learning now what not to do. It's always about that, taking those steps forward. And if you don't know, have an opportunity to ask the question, right? Like, I don't know what I messed up, but like, has anybody actually figured out how to do this? I need some help. That's the kind of thing that can be super valuable as well.
So I have one more comment. I love this topic. So when I hire engineers into my team, I always ask in the hiring process, tell me about a mistake you did. Because that shows, if I had people coming in saying, a person saying, oh, I can't remember, I did a mistake, and I'm just sitting, okay, you just got out of my I'm not going to hire you, because I need people on the team that can say, hey, I'm still learning, I will make mistakes, and that's how I grow, and that's how I grow with this company as well. Nobody's perfect, so it's I think it's putting it into the weekly meetings, if you have that, or into your conversations that you have. Just be careful with the wordings, because you don't want to be too negative around it. But make it, and just as Sora said, right, make it a culture aspect as well, that it's you do talk about it. It's not something you have to hide. Everybody has lessons learned.
Yeah. I've added a question to my interview process too, Sana. It it's when you get hired for this role, what do you anticipate as a growth opportunity for yourself? So what that does is it requires someone to really humble themselves and say, well, I did look at the job description and I see this is something that I'm not exactly 100% sure I'm strong in, and I have room to grow in this particular area. Or I need help with this, right? It's a similar question, but I found some really interesting answers come out of that. And when someone says, I don't have any growth, opportunity, I think I could do this job extremely well. That's not the answer I want to hear. Want to know that you can grow.
I like that. I'm stealing that one for next time.
You feel free.
I feel like we could probably do a mini what are your best interview questions to kind of or best vetting questions when you're working with people, because I think that would be really fun to see how people feel about those type of things. Now obviously if I was in boxing I would want someone to make a cocky response, but since I'm not and we're working within a team oriented, having a more humbled or introspective response would be somebody that you would want on your.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it depends on, right? Like, it depends on the role. At the same time, like boxing, okay, if you are a manager, like a boxing manager, you would want your boxer to be honest about what they need to work on. or and you as a manager are really, really going to like make sure that their training is up to par in order for them to fill out their weaknesses so that they can be stronger in particular areas. You got to be honest about those kind of things. But if it's a news interview or some PR statement, no, that's not when you want to hear a humble response from somebody. That's that's not going to work. But I think it's really interesting. You bring up sports because I just think about Simone Biles and what she's done to kind of share with openness about her experience, her mental health experience. And there's a lot of people who do not recognize her approach to acknowledging where she was and that she didn't want to move forward, but there's a lot of lack of respect on what she did still. And there's a lot, I love the amount of support that she's getting as well, but there are definitely two sides of the coin there. And I think that what she did is it took probably more guts to not move forward in her competition. It took more guts to acknowledge what she was experiencing, and it's a very similar scenario, obviously much smaller scale, when we're talking about lessons learned here. But you have to be able to know yourself well and be okay with, I don't want to say making fun of yourself, but be okay with acknowledging the reality of things, and what's best for you and what's best for your team, and having a really practical approach to making processes work, but also looking for those personal growth opportunities and team growth opportunities.
Yeah, and you mentioned about Simone Biles is actually really good because she's a mix of confidence and humbleness. On her leotard, she literally has a goat uh, designed on the leotard, and the fact that she came out with some mental health issue and was vulnerable about it speaks volumes to that person's transparency and honesty about their own.
Absolutely, Marcus. All right. Those who are in the audience, Maiwans, Kalia, Dr. Candy, did you guys have anything else you wanted to add to the discussion? I know you guys have been listening for a little bit. If you have something, feel free to raise your hand. We do have a listener out there. If you have any comments in the category of lessons learned, we'd like to hear from you in the chat. Really, really great discussion today. Thank you for bringing it up, Marcus.
Yeah, actually, it was Aziz brought it up, and yeah, he's long gone now, but he brought up a topic that I was really passionate about, and somehow we've talked about it for an hour and 35 minutes. So, and a lot of people had different perspectives of how they actually do it and how they handle it. Sana, I really loved your mini academy example. So, it kind of feels like, hey, everyone spends about 20 minutes and you can listen to other people's tips and tricks about utilizing said software. I hope other people who are working on software implementation plans or just software in general will use that strategy going.
Welcome, Dr. Candy.
Thank you, Brittany. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Great, thank you. It's the first time I'm using Club Deck to speak, so I've used it to administer Clubhouse, but never to speak. So, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the point that was made earlier about planning projects up front, really, so that mistakes aren't made. So if we can plan out problems rather than simply learning from them afterwards. I mean, it's always good to revisit things and to say what went well and what we can learn from things that did go well, as well as things that could be improved, is always a good thing to do when projects are even halfway through or a quarter way through. But actually, what we can learn from projects that we've finished or projects that we've done in the past, so that we don't make mistakes, I just thought, a brilliant point to make. So I just wanted to reiterate that in terms of the room being closed. So it wasn't an original point, but just a point of emphasis. That was all. Thank you. I finished speaking.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Candy. It's really good to hear what you got as a key takeaway and highlight from this conversation. It is so simple to do, but lots of people don't do it. But I think what we talked about today is the many different ways, many different approaches to doing this simple activity of just planning to not run into the same problems that you have run into before, or anticipating problems and doing your best to work together to not actually have them in the first place. I love it. All right. Well, Kalia, Maiwand, did you have anything you wanted to add to the discussion? All right, we got Kalia coming up.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Definitely something that I was pondering, I guess, when you guys were here just talking is basically whenever like having lessons learned as well as the retrospectives, which we've started to adopt as we're transitioning to more agile methodologies, believe it or not, is definitely making team members or creating a culture that just encourages process changes and the openness for process changes. And I think that makes a big difference because something that I've noticed along the way, so whenever I've been a part of retrospectives, is just where are these major lessons learned going to? Like, are we just talking about how the project went? What went wrong? Is it going to a certain process that's going to improve the schedule, going to improve the actual delivery rates? But I found that starting with what the conversation can change really encourages your employees as well as your team to feel a part of the actual process, and then I actually think that drives into more success. So I was just kind of thinking about the intention, because sometimes I know with new experiences as well as just to introduce a new process such as the retrospective to a team, it's kind of like it can really completely escalate, especially within like just construction, as far as who did something wrong and why did they do something wrong. So it really takes away from the actual like intent. But I think definitely driving it from a process change as well as making your team members feel a part of that process change makes a huge difference. So thanks, I'm done speaking.
You brought up a really, really great point, Kalia, around the involvement of the team, and creating that almost safe space for the team members who are involved to contribute to the discussion. I think that's so important, because if you talk about lessons learned, ask for people to share them, and then you document them, and then you push them out and say you have to now do this. That's a completely different different way to roll out changes to processes, and it feels domineering, and if you simply just think about that intentionality, just like you described, and how um, the changes can be adopted, 100% agree that if you're just more intentional about the goal of process improvement, and us all together collectively being able to work together better as a result, and that this is going to be a culture of improvement, 100% agree that that's going to land better than that other approach. So thank you for that comment.
Thanks, Brittany. And I just wanted to add a last point, because I've seen these like lesson learned meetings actually turned into a new way of setting specific targets for certain metrics. Then it's kind of like, well, the intent is not really to just set a new target. The intent is to actually improve where we are now. So, but I think like that, the idea of setting a new target for like a certain KPI can almost scare your team into like, well, I'm not going to bring any, just like basically bring up anything else, because it might, make my specific metric a little bit more leaner, just like a little bit more strict than it usually is, when this could be a one specific scenario we need to improve.
Yeah, that's really good. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, Kalia. Well, with that, what we're gonna do is wrap up the room. Actually, I think this has been such a valuable discussion. Thank you so much, everyone who has contributed to this conversation about lessons learned. If you have any desire to learn about what this conversation covered, you can see most of the recap of what was discussed on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, on Twitter. If you just follow me, you can find me either at Brittanie CT on most platforms, or Brittanie Campbell-Turner on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So with that, everyone, you have an amazing rest of your day, wherever you're located, if that's the afternoon or starting out your day. We want you to have a lovely one. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.